Good afternoon. I'm Ray Grider, and I'm speaking to you today from Gasburg, Virginia.
Where's that?
Somewhere, being a Virginia native, I had never heard of Gasburg, but I'm here at the beautiful, and I must say beautiful, golf course just outside of Lake Gaston. It is actually the Lake Gaston Golf Course, and I am with my good friend Arthur, and a brother of mine who is a big men's ministry advocate, Derek Maul. We met today to play some golf, and I thought it had been a while since I posted about the 5 spiritual stones, and the last entry was about ministry. And so when I did that, I was with Greg Ott, and we talked on the tennis court. So I said, well, what better thing to do today but to go play golf and bring the video camera and talk to my good friend Derek about the next spiritual stone, which is missions. And so I want to introduce Derek to you today. And Derek, it's wonderful for you to be here today.
Hey, it's great to be here.
Yeah.
So this spiritual stone is golf, you said? No, I'm sorry, mission.
It's
spiritual
missions.
Stone is mission, but what an amazingly beautiful day out here.
Oh, it's been a great
Phenomenal.
day. Had a lot of fun. Derek even shot a 79.
I did. I shot a 79. Who knew?
We won't say what I shot, but I had fun.
You got your money's worth.
Exactly.
Yeah, very much.
Well, Derek, for those of you that are maybe seeing this blog for the first time, Derek is, again, a good friend of mine. He is a writer. He is, again, a big advocate for men's ministry and the Christian faith. And he, like myself, calls himself a Jesus follower. And he has his own blog at www.derekmaul.wordpress.com.
Very good.
And it's the Life Charged Life.
Yes.
And so check that out when you get an opportunity. The inspiration for my blog has come from something that Derek has talked about in his most recent book, and that's called Living Life Like You Mean It.
Yeah.
He uses the phrase quite often in his writing, and he's working on a new book and has just come back from speaking to a Disciples of Men group in the Kansas region of the Christian Church.
Disciples of Christ men's group.
Absolutely. Yes. Thank you for getting that in there. So I want to know, Derek, and I know you know about, what I've been talking to people about and wanting to help them maybe give some encouragement to them in their lives and help them through any kind of difficulty they may have. Strangely enough, I had a good friend of ours that told Greg Ott and I that the last entry we had about the ministry made a huge impact on them,
really?
Just watching it. So
that's great.
So today is missions. So I'd like to get your take on what you might think missions means in the whole scheme of things when it comes to living your life like you mean it.
Well, I think it's a simple answer. Mission and salvation are actually the same thing. You want me to tell you why?
Oh, tell us why.
Tell you why. Okay. Because salvation is one of those ideas which I think has been misrepresented a lot in the last few years, as if it's pie in the sky when you die. Well, you look through the Bible, read the Old Testament and the New Testament, and when the word salvation is used, what it means is participating in the work that God is up to. Okay?
Right.
So if salvation in the Bible is about joining with God in God's work, well, how that works into life beyond life or life after death is you start that now, and moving forward, it continues in life beyond life. And rather than having your ticket punched later, salvation is getting in line with God's work now. Well, what is God doing now? God is missionally reaching into the world. Mission then is participating with God's initiative, and God's initiative is to have everybody have the opportunity to follow Jesus, and everybody have the opportunity to have a life which is charged with life. There's no spiritual life over here and life over here, and you live your life and occasionally you live your spiritual life.
Right.
No, there's life, and God wants to be involved in that. And to be missional is to participate in God's initiative, which means reaching beyond ourselves.
Oh, okay. So, how do you think as a society we're doing as Jesus followers now at showing people about the missional aspect of our lives?
Oh,
Are we...
as my son would say, epic fail.
And the only reason I ask you that is because when Greg and I talked, we talked about how ministry can be anything that somebody does, and they not really understand that they're doing ministry.
Yes.
And then when you explain to them, well, here's what you're doing, they are kind of taken aback to it, especially if they're somebody that's, you know, a non-believer, or
Yeah.
somebody that doesn't go to church, or somebody that's been estranged from the church for quite a while. Oh no, that's not what I'm doing. I don't see it that way.
Mm-hmm.
So we talked about how we, in not an overbearing way, try to help people understand that what you're doing is conducting ministry. But what do we want to say about that when it comes to mission work?
Again, if we're aligning ourselves with God's intention and God's will, God's intention and God's will is not worked out solely through card-carrying members of a Christian church.
Okay.
Just in the same way that creativity is inspired by God. Mick Jagger may not, I know certainly was not, saying, "This is to the glory of God," when he wrote Satisfaction. Okay. However, this is God's creative impulse in the world, God creating and recreating through us. Music is that sort of a gift. And
Absolutely.
Christian artists acknowledge God in their work. People who are not Christians can still produce creativity, which I believe is inspired by the Spirit of God, without acknowledging it. So in the same way, I think when God's purposes are fulfilled, when say hunger is being dealt with, and the person who travels to Haiti to work with that group goes because he loves his fellow or her fellow humankind, and they're not a Christian, I believe they're participating in God's initiatives in the world.
Right.
And so we as believers often think that what we do is exclusively mission, and we don't even do much of it. We tend to have this little let's meet together in our church club,
Yeah.
and pat each other on the back for being Christians,
Yeah.
and do nothing in the world. We're less missional than the atheist who's feeding the hungry.
Right. And I'll tell you of an experience I had when we went to New Mexico, and my wife and I do, as you know, a lot of work with the Navajo people out there. Mm-hmm. The first time that we went and came back, the lady in church behind us said, "Well, how many of those Indians did you save?" And I turned around and I looked at her and I said, I think we did okay. And but you know, that whole experience for myself and for those that have gone on that piece of education, you learn so much about yourself and others in what you're doing for them, and realizing that they are so connected to God in ways that we can only hope to be connected to God.
Absolutely.
And you know, just doing things like that and opening yourself up to other ways of looking at the world and looking at Christianity, I think are things that people just kind of shy away from. And
well, let me offer kind of counterpoint to that then.
Yeah.
The fact is that Jesus said, "Go into all the world and make disciples."
Absolutely.
Teaching them all I have commanded you, and lo, I will be with you always. And even at the heart of this conversation is still, I want people to know Jesus. Sure, people may be finding God in a different way, but what I know, I remember Peter and John were thrown out of a temple, said, "Don't go talking about Jesus anymore." And they said, "We can't help but talk about what we've seen
help it.
and what we've heard." Well, what I've seen and what I've heard is my relationship with God and my experience of life, this amplified, more and better life than you can ever imagine, as the paraphrase of John 10:10 by Peterson says. That comes from Jesus. And so I want people to know that and experience that. So I do think a key element of mission, which is doing God's work in the world, is to tell the story, is to share the story. But we've got to have a story before we can share it. And that was where that epic fail comment came, because I think too many of us in the so-called Christian church are members of the Christian club, and it has nothing to do with spiritual life. So get some spiritual life, share it with the world. That's going to be revealed in many, many, many ways. But that's mission.
I think you're right. I think, as you and I have discussed before, storytelling and that brings the whole Native American back into it as well. The storytelling is something that I think a lot of us take for granted until you go through an experience like I went through with my father and seeing pass, or we have all these people around us that have these stories that are just waiting to be told, and we need to go and capture them and to share our story with them, to show that as Jesus followers, we are doing the mission that he has called us to do.
And how does our story fit in with the greatest story ever told? Because we are a part.
We are part of
that story. I had experience, if it's time for another.
Oh, absolutely.
On the way home from Kansas with the Disciples of Christ men's retreat, which was very inspirational. We were talking about sharing faith. And I was in the airport, and I had a few minutes before the next flight. So I went and grabbed myself a Sam Adams, at the Chicago airport, and I sat down. The woman sat down next to me, and she heard me order. She said, "Well, where in England are you from?" I said, "Well, I've been an American citizen since 1985, but yeah, I grew up in England." So then I heard her voice. "Where are you from?" She said, "Well, I'm from Oxford." I said, "Well, are you a student in Oxford?" And she said, "Well, yes, I was a student there for a number of years, but now I'm a PhD teacher."
Oh, wow.
She is now a teacher of philosophy at Oxford. And so I said, that is so awesome. I mean, not just to attend that school, but to be a teacher there.
Yeah.
I said, "I've got to tell you a story." I said to her, my favorite author, C.S. Lewis, once lost a debate. It was the only time in his life he ever lost a debate. And she said, "C.S. Lewis lost a debate?" I said, "Yeah, he did. And he lost it to a woman philosophy professor from Oxford University." In other words, your counterpart back in the 1950s totally nailed him on a debate. And it was a debate about Christian faith. And she said, So I could tell immediately that was not something that she was interested in, but she respected C.S. Lewis. So I said, "Well, as a philosopher and as a philosophy teacher, who's your favorite philosopher?" She scratched her head and she said, I think Bertrand Russell. I said, "Bertrand Russell, an amazing man, but he was an atheist, right?" And she said, "Oh, yeah." And I said, "Another interesting story. Just yesterday in Kansas, I told a story about Bertrand Russell, your favorite." I said, "You want to hear the story?" She said, "Yeah." I said, "Well, back in the turn of the century, Bertrand Russell, the 19th to the 20th century, Russell was seen walking along the sidewalk, hurrying on a Sunday morning towards a church. And someone stopped him and said, 'Bertrand Russell?' I said, 'Yes.' 'Where are you going?' 'Church.' And the man said, 'But Mr. Russell, I didn't think you accepted that message.' And Bertrand Russell said, 'Well, the man who is speaking this morning believes with such passion that I cannot help. I'm compelled to listen.'" Yeah. And so the philosophy professor looked at me, and she kind of raised her eyebrow, and I could see the wheels turning. Now, I didn't pull out a religious tract and say,
right,
"You're going straight to hell if you don't accept Jesus right now." But in that short conversation, her hero, through me, said something positive about faith.
That's right.
C.S. Lewis, who she respected, talked through me about faith. And we had a really good conversation. She got on her plane, flew, I think, onto Los Angeles. I flew down to Raleigh. My weekend was over. That was missional. That was
absolutely.
God was up to something. I got to share in that. So maybe that answers your question.
You shared a story of your faith and experience to someone, just like we share any other type of stories, but people forget that it's that easy.
And talk about providential. I'd been talking about Bertrand Russell. Who talks about Bertrand Russell?
Yeah, really?
Nobody. The day before. And she was, anyway, it was just, I found that, when you're listening and God is working, who knows what can happen.
Absolutely.
Exciting stuff.
I think it's very exciting stuff. That's a great story. Well, Derek, I thank you very much. It's been a wonderful day, wonderful time.
Let's go around again, another 18.
Yeah, let's do it. If we had time, I would, definitely.
I would, yes.
But it's a great course, and it was a great time having to be with you today. And as always, I hope that you will continue to inspire people with your writing and your following of Jesus and telling your story. And
well, thanks, Ray. And the book, if any of you are interested,
yes.
the latest book is called 10 Life-Charged Words, Real Faith for Men. And if you're interested, give it a look. And also keep your ears to the ground, because Ray's got something coming soon, I know. So thanks for listening.
I hope so. Well, thanks a lot, folks, for being with us today. And we have one more spiritual stone to talk about, and that is the spiritual stone of worship. Hopefully it won't be as long before we explore that one. We've been to a tennis court, we've been to a golf course, so who knows where we'll end up next time.
Yeah. A Rolling Stones concert. The Spiritual Stones.
The Spiritual Stones, yeah, maybe a Stones concert. If Keith Richards makes it that long.
Oh, good.
All right, well, again, thanks for being with us today from Gasburg, Virginia at Lake Gaston Golf Club. Thank you, Derek Maul, for being with us again, and I hope you continue to strive to live your life like you mean it. God bless.